Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules podcast. This is episode 75, which is crazy amount already in season one. This is our pre-draft week episode for the AFL. Draft day is coming up this Wednesday and a Thursday, 2-day draft day. So we're going to be having a look at that, have a look at some of the key players that will be picked up. We'll have a look at a quick run through every team, what draft picks they've got, what they're looking for based on what they've already picked up and what they're missing, I guess, on their list so far. So we're going to run through all of that in today's episode. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert on the draft because I'm not. I focus mainly on AFL football, so I don't watch a whole lot of the younger generation. Future generations, but we'll use what knowledge we've got, put it all together in a video. Hopefully what you find is interesting. So there's going to be a couple segments to this video. First of all, we're going to look at the key players that will be picked up on draft day, maybe potentially where they're going to go as well, and then we'll jump into team by team analysis. So that will be part two. All one video, one podcast. But without any further ado, we will jump into some of the key players and what we think of this year's draft. We've pretty much been told from this basically all year that it's a very deep draft, a lot of options. So teams that have a lot of picks early or throughout the first/second round, potentially plenty of good options in there. Doesn't mean you will get a good option in the long run, but certainly there's players there that look like they have plenty of potential. There's a lot of midfielders. Certainly early on in the draft, I think you're going to see a lot of midfielders go. There'll be a couple key position players here and there and a few small forwards, but on the most part, you're going to see a lot of midfielders go. I think without too much conjecture, I think the best player in the draft this year is Levi Ashcroft. He's probably not going to go pick one because I can't see Richmond putting in a bid for him with their first pick. Where someone does go for that bid, I don't know. Hopefully, for every other team's sake, the earlier the better. But at the end of the day, he's going to Brisbane. Like it or not, that is pretty much what's going to happen. He's a ready-made player. There's a lot of people that think he's better than his brother, who obviously has won a Norm Smith and an AFL premiership already. So it's a dangerous look with him heading to that club. He's obviously ready-made. He's played I don't know how many games of VFL he played, but he definitely played in the VFL team at one point this year and absolutely dominated. Had 35 touches, 8 clearances, kicked a goal in his debut in the VFL, so he's clearly ready for senior football. So I think Brisbane have got themselves an absolute bargain here that will potentially be looking to play from round one. It'll be interesting to see how he fits into the Brisbane Lions midfield. You'd imagine he'd have to go midfield. But we'll see how that plays out. They've obviously got a very good midfield already. His brother's there, Lachie Neale's there. They've got McCluggage, plenty of other midfielders as well. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think it's safe to say he will end up at Brisbane. It will just be a matter of whether that's pick 2, 3, 4 or 5 really. But yeah, he's in my eyes the best midfielder. There's probably two players looking at going pick number 1 in this draft for Richmond. They're looking at 2 as far as we can see. Sam Layla or Finn O'Sullivan. Both thick boys, so that's probably not going to play into it too much. Sam Layla's a bit taller, bit of a stronger body, I guess. Explosive, powerful player. Probably not quite in the same vein as Harley Reid from last year, but certainly looks like he's going to be someone that probably puts up sort of similar numbers, a bit less, probably not quite as explosive as Harley Reid was, but he won't be someone that's averaging 25 touches for the next few years, I wouldn't imagine. But he'll be someone that's probably around that 20, 22 touches mark. And hopefully a strong body that's getting them lots of clearances, because whoever they take in these early picks, they've obviously got quite a few picks, are pretty much going to be playing from day one. There's going to be quite a few that will be playing 15 plus games this year for Richmond of this draft stock. So getting someone like him who is a ready-made, big-bodied player would be pretty important, I think. As we said, the other option for them, or what they're looking at, is Finn O'Sullivan. Spent a fair chunk of this year injured, which is never ideal heading into the draft. Maybe if he had had a full season, he would be the clear number one pick, but he's not, so it is what it is. He's played VFL football, not much, but has played a little bit of VFL. I think he's going to be an accumulator, a consistent ball user, someone that certainly could be picked up very early, and you'd expect to go early. It'll be interesting to see also Jager Smith. I doubt he'll go 1 or 2, but he's probably the best accumulator in the draft. I think he played some VFL this year and averaged like 27 touches or something ridiculous. Don't quote me on that because I could be wrong. But he's probably the best ball winner of the draft, I guess, this year. So there's talks that he could end up at Carlton, which, if that's the case, that's a pretty dangerous person to add into their midfield. And probably exactly what Paddy Cripps needs beside him is an accumulator. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. But if that's the case, that could be a really, really good pickup for Carlton. Sid Draper, another midfielder, this one from South Australia. Could go early, could go as early as pick 2. I doubt he goes pick 1, but Adelaide will be hoping he gets through to them. If he's on the board, they'll almost certainly take him. I would imagine they'll try and stick to South Australians when they can. Another player that has shown quite a good consistency at junior level, under 18 was really, under 18 Carnival, he was really good. So, expect him to go early. I would say he'll go pick 4, but potentially could go as early as pick 2 to the Kangaroos, depending what they are thinking on the day. Another midfielder that's probably going to be pretty high up is Harvey Langford. Big body, another big body like likely first pick, Layla. 191 centimetres, so he's tall, slightly taller than Pendlebury. Similar height to Cripps, just below. So a big body, could end up at multiple teams, depending on what happens earlier on in the draft. Adelaide might pick him up if they don't get Sid Draper, but I think he's ready to go. Has a good kick, gets plenty of the ball for a big body. Probably ready to go straight away. Always could go down to as far as Richmond as well. Picks like 7 or 8, somewhere around there maybe. Could go to Melbourne. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Josh Smillie, another midfielder. This one a tall one. Not quite as built solidly just yet, but probably will grow into that. 195 centimetres as a midfielder is ridiculous. He runs all day. His 2K time was really good. I think whoever picks him up potentially has a good one on them. There's just a lot of midfield stocks in this draft. First non-midfielder to probably get picked up might be Toby Travaglia. Oh my god, I can't speak. Running defender. Could also develop into another midfielder because he is someone that runs all day. Uses the ball pretty well, so he's another player there. Gold Coast, at some point, probably in the first 10 picks, depending on what other teams do with their bids, we'll be picking up Leo Lombard, who is obviously part of their academy. He'll be an absolute gun, as far as we can see. He's been playing for the Suns in their VFL Premiership as a 16-year-old, so he's ready for senior football. There's absolutely no doubt about it. What pick he ends up going will obviously depend on other teams, but he's definitely a midfielder that's ready to go, and probably definitely worthy of being a top 10 pick. In all honesty, it looks like he is ready to go for senior football, so he could go straight into this Gold Coast team. Other players, best tall defender, probably Alex Taru, Gippsland Power, Vic Country, tall defender. Funnily enough, he's actually shorter than a couple of the midfielders above him at 193 centimetres. So in modern day football, it's not hugely tall, but he's someone that, could go to plenty of different teams here. It'll be interesting to see when teams start taking non-midfielders, being that there are so many good midfielders in this draft. Bo Allen is a midfielder, running defender that could go anywhere, to be honest, in these first 15 picks. Another pretty tall midfielder, but also running defender. He's a Western Australian, so obviously West Coast would like him. I don't know if he will drop down as far as their picks, probably won't. But maybe an option for a Melbourne or a Richmond, potentially. Probably Richmond would really like him. I reckon he would suit Richmond and what they need quite well. Seeing that they've lost some of their dash from the back line, having someone that can start their career as a half-backman and move their way forward into the midfield role might be a good option, but also they might need just ready-made midfielders as well. Xavier Lindsay will probably go reasonably early as well. Another accumulator. Gets plenty of the ball, so someone else to look at. Bombers will get Isaac Keiko at some point whenever that matching bid is required. The later the better for them, but a small forward who kicks lots of goals. In all honesty, his numbers look probably slightly better than Nick Watson's did throughout the junior career. Whether that translates to AFL or not, we'll wait and see. Interestingly enough, he did kick very inaccurately last year for the Calder Cannons, kicking 21-28, which is what Nick Watson's issue in the AFL was for most of this season. So he'll want to be straightening that up, but he'll be getting picked up in that first round at some point, depending on when the matches come in. Job Shanahan, probably the best tall forward in the draft. I was about to say in the competition, but in this draft, 195 centimetres, so pretty decent size. Obviously, taller key position players usually take a little bit longer to develop, but Richmond still have Tom Lynch, so him as coming in behind Tom Lynch might be a perfect scenario for Richmond. In all honesty. There's plenty of other names we can go through and who will likely get drafted. I'm just trying to think if there's any other key ones that we really should be talking about. Not particularly in that first round, but we will. The only other one that's going to be matched almost likely in that first round is Brisbane getting their second good pickup. Another midfielder, Sam Marshall. Obviously part of the Brisbane Academy. Brisbane did their work to get enough points and they're going to get two good midfielders out of it. I can't see him being someone that plays too much this season, mainly just due to how good the rest of their midfield is and the Brisbane team is. He might struggle to find a way into the team straight away. Certainly probably won't be in there from day dot. But someone that certainly has a bit of potential going forward. So yeah, that's the key players in draft night. We will now go into our team-by-team analysis. As we load that up, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. This podcast goes live twice a week on YouTube and Spotify. One episode a week on the men's game, one a week on the women's game. We're heating up in the women's season. Prelim final week coming up, so check back. Friday episode will be... Actually, it might come out Thursday this week, depending on when I film it. But there will be a women's episode going live on prelim final week later on this week, so check that out. Also, there'll be another draft analysis, post-analysis on next week's AFL's podcast episode, so check that out. Also, plenty of other content on the YouTube channel. All my socials, go check it all out. Content most days somewhere. I'm trying to get as much out as I can. We're trying to build for next year to be a big year for All Aussie Rules, so join in the fun, plenty of content, and let's go into our team-by-team analysis. First up, Adelaide Crows with their new logo, their new fresh logo. Love it or hate it. I don't mind it. I think it's probably better than their previous one, in my eyes at least. So they've lost Elliot Himmelberg and Rory Sloane, who's retired. And then incoming Isaac Cumming, Alex Neil-Bullen and James Peatling, which is not bad. And now they have picks 4, 64 and 78. Obviously, we'll definitely use pick 4, probably to pick up a midfielder, which will leave them 2 more picks in the draft. I doubt they'll use them both. They'll probably just use one of them. The second one will be for Tyler Welsh, who is a father-son selection. So, obviously, that will be their second pick, and probably there are only 2 picks for the draft. But still, a good midfielder plus a father-son pick. Looks all right for the Crows. Obviously, last year was not a great season, 2024, for them. They kind of underperformed a fair bit on what they were hoping / expecting for the season. Obviously, finishing 15th was not great, where they just missed finals the year before. Haven't lost too much. Rory Sloane retired, Himmelberg out, but I think their ins are pretty good in Peatling, Neil-Bullen, Cumming. If they can get a good midfielder with that first draft pick, someone that maybe plays 12 to 15 to 16 games this season for 2025, could really develop them quite well. Their midfield's not terrible. It's not their worst position. Obviously, Dawson's in there. They've had a few other players that have developed. Saligo showed a lot of development this year, so they're not terrible. They probably need to look at other positions as well, but I mean, you've got to take what you can, and their best option in this one is to take a midfielder, probably Sid Draper, but we'll see how that plays out on the night, depending on whether someone else takes Sid Draper first. Next up, we've got the Brisbane Lions, obviously the reigning premiers. They finished first last year. They lose Harry Sharp, Joe Danaher and Jared Blinds. The last 2 of those have retired. No ins as yet. As you can see, they have a bit of a draft stock in 27, 34, 42, 43, 49 and 58. They won't be using all of them, depending on where they have to match draft picks. They'll probably take maybe 3 players in the draft. Obviously, first one will be Levi Ashcroft, who will walk straight into this team and be huge for them. So he'll be huge. Obviously, we also mentioned that they will probably be matching another pick in Sam Marshall. So a couple midfielders to come into this team. And then maybe a couple picks later on with maybe some of their later picks, depending on what picks they have to use up to match those two bids. Will be interesting where they go with that. You'd probably think that they probably want to look at some other positions. It looks like they're likely to pick up Sam Day as a delisted big man from Gold Coast. So, I mean, he'll probably get quite a few games up forward maybe for them this year with them losing Joe Danaher to retirement. He's probably someone that could come in and fill that role and also use his ruck work a bit, because that's what Danaher did for them. So that's probably their main position that they need to focus on, is that forward line, I think. Mainly their tall forward line for the future, not so much for today or this year. But for a couple of years' time, they possibly do. I mean, they have got still some good players in there. But I think they've got a bit of replacement to do in that Joe Danaher long term. We'll see how that plays out. Next up, we got Carlton Blues. What to make of these guys? Obviously, they've finished 8th on the ladder. They fell apart a bit late in the season. If you haven't looked at it already, I did a fixture video last week on the release of the AFL fixture. So go check that out. Carlton have done very well. I don't think anyone in Blue Land would be complaining about their fixture. It's come out well, and they don't really have any excuses heading into 2025. Out goes Matt Kennedy, Matt Uys, and Jack Martin. In comes Nick Haynes. They have a bit of a good draft stock here. Pick 3 is huge for them, as well as 38, 63, 68, 69, and 71. Pick 3, they'll be taking a midfielder almost certainly. It'll be interesting to see who's available to them. I don't think Layla will. I think he'll go 1 or 2. But O'Sullivan could be there. Otherwise, Jager Smith could be absolutely huge for them as a really big ball winner. Otherwise, Sid Draper might be an option. So there's a few good midfield options there for Carlton to pick up with their pick 3, which I think will be really big for this team. They're a team that already has a couple really good key forwards. They have a good key backman. They have a really good spine. It's just about getting those finishing touches for them, and that could be what they need. Just an accumulator in the midfield to help out Cripps. I know Walsh is there, but another one wouldn't hurt. They're probably going to also pick up 2 Camporelli brothers, Ben and Lucas. Best case scenario for them is no one puts a bid on Ben, and they can get him at pick 38. Whether that's the case or not, we'll find out, I guess. The other brother, Lucas, is probably going to drift down, might not even get picked up, so might be someone that they can just easily pick up last at the end. Probably take another pick with one of their later picks, depending on what they've got left, based on matching and stuff. But probably 3 or 4 pickups for them in this draft. Obviously, pick 3 is their big one, their main one, and then the 2 Camporelli twins, who I don't think don't look like they're going to be world beaters, but Ben's the better of the 2 at the moment. Whether that's how it plays out, we'll see. But certainly a good draft opportunity for Carlton here to use pick 3, having been in the finals last year, is massive and not something that you see too often. They didn't give up too much in terms of players. Kennedy, Uys, and Martin out. They get Nick Haynes in. I think not many excuses for Carlton in 2025. Next up, we have Collingwood Magpies. Out goes Joe Richards, John Noble, and Nathan Murphy. in comes Dan Houston, Harry Perryman, Tim Membry. They finished 9th on the ladder last year, and as you can see from those draft picks, they're not going to have a whole heap of say on draft night. 52, 55, 60, 66, and 82. It's not a draft night that Collingwood are going to get a ready-made player. They're not going to have too many players on option that look great to start with, but that doesn't mean they won't develop into good players. You got to think, like, a lot of good players have been drafted late in the history of AFL, and that's what they're going to be trying to do, I guess, hoping that they can unlock one of them. The thing is, they're probably going to be aiming at key position players, so they probably want key forwards, they want key defenders for sure, so that's probably where their main focus is going to be. Maybe even a ruckman, if they can find one. I doubt they'll look at midfielders based on their list and where they're at the moment. Having said that, there is a few older midfielders on this Collingwood list already, so that we'll be looking at retiring over the next few years, but they do have plenty of young midfielders as well. Obviously, the Dacos brothers being two of them. So I think they're going to focus all their picks on getting a key position player or two. Obviously, when you're picking that late, you need a bit of luck, but that's Collingwood. The Bombers, they finished 11th last year. Dyson Heppel retired, as did Jake Kelly. Jake Stringer has left to go to the GWS Giants. They haven't got any ins at the moment, but at the moment they also have quite a big draft stock in 28, 31, 40, 46, 53, 54 and 65. Some of them will be burnt up in matching Isaac Keiko's bid, depending on who puts a bid in for him will determine how many of those picks they need to use up on that. Obviously, a small forward is definitely what Essendon need. Essendon need goal kickers this year. They've lost Stringer, who's one of their best over the last few years in terms of goals. Obviously, Langford is their key forward. But yeah, they certainly need that small forward ability, and from everything we've heard, Isaac Keiko could be the guy. We'll see how it is, how that goes. They'll probably use a couple more picks throughout the draft, depending on which picks they are, will be who they can, I guess, who they can target, where they target. I'm pretty sure, I think outside of small forwards, I feel like most positions Essendon will be chasing. At the moment, probably not a big need for ruckman, but midfielders for sure. Running backmen for sure. Key defenders not so much. Key forwards they'd certainly take. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Interestingly enough, they might also pick up Jackson Pryor as a delisted free agent or whatever it is. So they might be picking him up as well. Next up, we have the Fremantle Dockers. They finished 10th on the ladder. They haven't lost a player. They've got Shai Bolton in, and they've got picks 14, 30, 67, 81 and 89. Shai Bolton is huge in for them, adds a bit of running dash. Obviously missed finals last year, and they just shouldn't have missed finals. They lost their last 4 games to get to that point. So it's not the ideal situation for them, but it's maybe put them in a good spot for going forward. Pick 14 is still early enough that they should be able to pick up a really good player with that one. Likely to be a midfielder, I would say. I doubt they stray away from midfielders with their first pick. But they might. You never know. I could be completely wrong. It's probably not going to be pick 14 by the time it gets to them, obviously, with bids and stuff. But they'll end up, around about somewhere in between 14 and 17. They're a team that there's been talk about them getting Joe Berry, who I know I said midfielders. He's a small forward. They could get him. I think if Bo Allen is available, they'll probably take Bo Allen. Whether he drops down as far as Fremantle, I doubt it. But if he's there, they'll definitely take him, in my opinion. A few other options for them, but we'll see how the draft night plays out. They can use that first pick, though, to get a really good potential player for their future. After that, what they do with their rest of the picks, probably use another couple. I've nominated Jaron Carr, who is the son of Matthew Carr, as a father-son pick. I don't know where that will happen, whether he'll get bid on, whereabouts he'll get bid on, but they'll likely pick up him and probably look at adding another pick later on through 67 or 81, probably pick 67, to fill out their list, I guess. Who they go for, I don't know. Looks like they'll also potentially get Quinton Narkle, who was on Port Adelaide's list last year and has been delisted. Next up, we have the Cats. They finished 4th after finals. Obviously, Tom Hawkins retired. Then Parfitt, Rowan and Tui are all gone. In comes Bailey Smith and Jack Martin. Don't have much in terms of draft picks. We've just 45, 57, 74 and 84. They gave up picks to get Bailey Smith. I don't think it's a bad thing. What they aim for in this draft, they probably need a ruckman, in all honesty. Might be something that they need to look at, certainly for the future. When drafting ruckman, you're not drafting them usually for this season or even next season. It's usually for maybe 4 to 5 years in advance. So we'll see how that plays out. Other than that, they're just looking to bolster their team. They haven't lost a whole heap. I know Tom Hawkins is a huge forward, but I mean, he didn't play much last year anyway. Zach Tui's an interesting one to replace. Run and dash maybe is what they need, but at the same time, Bailey Smith, Jack Martin are huge ins for them as well. So I don't think draft night for them is huge. They'll use their picks. They'll probably pick up 4 players, but it's not saying that it's crucial that they draft well. They've got a pretty good list. They were only just out of a grand final last year. Next up, Gold Coast Suns with another fresh logo. A lot of talk about whether it's a good logo or not. I don't hate it. I don't know. We won't comment on that here. Anyway, they finished 13th last year. Still haven't played finals in their history of the club. Out Atkins, Casbolt, Ellis and Lukosius. In comes Himmelberg, Noble and Rioli from Richmond. Daniel Rioli. I've got draft picks 39, 41, 51, 61, which doesn't sound great, but it doesn't matter what picks they have. They're just using them to match picks. So they'll be going for Leo Lombard. Wherever he gets bid on, they'll be going for him, which will be huge in for them. I don't know how early someone will go for that, but we'll see. They've also got a couple other players that they're targeting late in the draft, so we'll see how that plays out. But I think Leo Lombard's their main thing that they're aiming for. Well, they're certainly getting him. And I mean, they haven't lost too much. Lukosius is obviously a key player that played every week and is now out of their team. Sam Day's also gone, but bringing in Himmelberg probably replaces a bit of that Lukosius size, whereas Noble and Rioli add some really good run and dash for their team. It's not an area of their game that they struggle with, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. But it might free up some of their other running backs maybe to play a different role. We'll see how that plays out in 2025. Next up, we have GWS Giants. they had a busy off-season. They obviously lost quite a few players. Cumming, Haynes, Adam Kennedy, James Peatling and Harry Perryman all leaving the club. In comes Jake Stringer, obviously, which will be interesting to see the role that he plays in this forward line for the Giants. It's a forward line that kind of worked well this year with throughout the season, so it'll be interesting to see how they play that one. I've said the word interesting a lot tonight, so I'm sorry for that. I'll try and use different words, but we'll see how that goes. They've got a lot of picks: 15, 16, 21, 37, 56 and 73. Wouldn't worry too much about their last couple picks, but 15, 16, 21 are all really good picks in a draft that you can get some really good potential talent in those three picks. So how that plays out for the Giants, what positions they go for, I think will be a key thing for them this year. Obviously, all five of those players that are left from that screenshot there all need replacing, really. In all honesty, they were all players that pretty much play most weeks, if not every week. So they are going to have to find replacements for that. They've got some good draft picks that will give them options for that, but they also have depth in their lineup already. So I don't think that's too big of a concern for them. Next up, we have the Hawkers. They finished sixth after finals. Chad Wingard's out as a retirement. In comes Josh Battle and Tom Barras. Adds a bit more depth to their team. This is huge for them. Not much in terms of draft, just 33, 70 and 75. Where they go with these draft, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they'll want. Probably pick up a couple of players. Exactly what position they're chasing, I don't know. Maybe more midfielders. I mean, you can never have enough midfielders in modern day football. If there's any good key position players, you'd be silly not to go for them. They do have a lot of key backmen at the moment already. So maybe key forwards might be a better option. We'll see. But I don't think they're going to be super busy over draft nights. I wouldn't imagine. Next up, we got the Demons, who will definitely be busy on day one. Obviously, tailed away their season last year. They lose Brayshaw due to retirement, Ben Brown to retirement, Lockie Hunter also to retirement, and Alex Neil-Bullen, who went to the Crows. In comes Harry Sharp and Tom Campbell, so nothing too great there, but they do have picks 5 and 9 as well as 79. Picks 5 and 9, they can double dip that into two potentially really good players that almost come straight into their team. They probably need to find themselves a midfielder to replace that Angus Brayshaw role. Whether they can do that in this draft or not, we'll wait and see what's available to them. Someone like a Bo Allen could really play that Brayshaw role, I think, in my eyes. Whether that's how it plays out or not, I'm not sure. But he's certainly someone that they could pick up and potentially do all right from. Their other pick will be also probably a midfielder type, I would imagine. They probably just go double midfielders, I think. There's talk that Harvey Langford could be heading there. Otherwise, there's other options, but I think it's likely that we see midfielders, but maybe a tall defender like Alex Taru could end up with one of the picks depending on what happens. So I think Melbourne will definitely be busy, certainly in that first round on Wednesday night, and have the potential, if they draft well, that they could be setting themselves up really well. Early draft picks in this one are going to be huge, I think, in the future. We move on to the Kangaroos. Finished 17th on the ladder. Hugh Greenwood's retired. Liam Shields also retired. And Jaden Stevenson retired. In comes Jack Darling, Caleb Daniel, Luke Parker, and Jacob Constanti. They got picks 2, 62, 76, 86. So they've given up all their picks, really, outside of pick 2 to get those players in. Added plenty of experience to their team through that, as well as they're likely to get a really good midfielder in this draft, which, dare I say, they don't really need midfielders. Young midfielders, at least. They need maybe experienced midfielders to show these guys the way. But they've also already got plenty of good ball-winning ability in that midfield. However, if someone like Luke Davies-Yanaki was to leave the club at the end of 2025, maybe a young midfielder coming through from this draft might be the one to replace it. They're probably going to get River Stevens, son of Anthony Stevens, as well, probably with their last pick, or one of their last couple picks. So we'll see how that plays out. But their main thing is obviously pick 2. And which midfielder they get with that. They're also dangled their pick 2 up to other teams. I don't think realistically anyone's going to take them up on that, just because I reckon they'll be charging too much for what other teams want. So maybe that's why they're dangling it up, because they see it as a chance to maybe go for a different position player if they're not pick 2. Next up, we have the Port Adelaide Power. Out goes Dixon, Houston, and Trent McKenzie. In comes Lukosius, Richards, and Atkins. Obviously, they finished 3rd, lost in a prelim final last year, or in 2024. They have picks 13, 29, 36, and 50, so a pretty good draft pool there. Plenty of options with pick 13. I think key position might be the best way for them to go, in all honesty. Key backman, they're probably pretty okay. I just don't... Maybe they don't go keys. Maybe they go more a half-backer. They need to replace Dan Houston somehow, or even a half-forward player. There's probably just looking at trying to round out their team. Midfield, they're pretty strong already. They have a couple key backmen already. Maybe their key forwards lack a little bit at times when Charlie Dixon didn't perform much last year. He's obviously out now. But they do have Georgiadis, who showed a bit last year, so a bit of development from him will be good. So where they go, I think most people expect them to take a tall with their first pick. But obviously that'll depend on what's available to them. Pick 29 is still a pretty good pick, as is 36. And I mean, 50 could be a good player as well. There's been plenty of good players picked around about pick 50 in the history of AFL. They're a team that have been up there for many years. They could drop off, but at the same time, like, you've got to expect that they'll still be thereabouts if they can round out their team a little bit. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Richmond, they finished bottom of the ladder. They've lost Baker, Bolton, Grimes, Martin, Pickett, and Violi, which isn't great reading. No ins, but boy do they have a busy draft night. All but one of their picks is on that first night. Picks 1, 6, 10, 11, 18, 20, 23, all happening on the first night. Whether they end up trading any of them off or not, we'll see, but yeah, all of them first night, and then they got first pick of the second night, and then they are done. As we've kind of hinted at already in this episode, they'll be looking big time at getting ready-made players as much as they can. At their moment, their senior list is 27 players. So they will be using as many picks as they can and trying to get as many ready-made players. The issue potentially is who's there to develop these young players. I mean, they haven't lost all their upper-class talent. Still, they've got Lynch has been a key forward that is a premiership player. So if they get key forwards, he could develop them. Dan Curvis is one of the better ruckmen, so they've got a good ruckman. They're not completely lacking talent. But half the battle is picking the right players, and then the other half is developing them. And I see that as their Tigers' biggest issue at the moment. But I mean, they've gone all in on this draft. If they can get some good players, it will be. It's not going to be a fix for this year or even really 2026. You wouldn't think, but it's all about building themselves ready for 2027 and onwards, I think. So yeah, they're going to be super busy. They'll pick up a couple midfielders, probably 3 or 4 midfielders, maybe a key position up each end as well. And yeah, I think their idea will probably be just take the best talent they can get, especially if they are already a big body. Next up, St Kilda. Only a few teams left to look at. They finished 12th last year. Out goes Membry and Battle. In comes McRae and Carroll. Draft picks 7, 8, 32, 47, 80 and 88. So a couple picks early on. Picks 7 and 8. The double pick gives them, I guess, good chance at picking up a midfielder and maybe a key position player. I think I'd like to see them go real attacking with their players, but we'll see how that plays out. They're going to probably use most of their picks. In all honesty, those 7 and 8 will be crucial to get 2 good players that they can develop. 32, 47, maybe see what's on offer, but there still should be some good players potentially on the list, on the board there for them. So those 4 picks could all be okay. Possibly going to go Elwood Peckett with one of their picks as a father-son. They've also got a couple NGA players in Adrian Cole and Lennox Hoffman, so they might pick up those 3. We'll see how it plays out, but they're going to be pretty busy throughout the weekend. A couple picks in that first round, a couple in the later rounds as well. Next up, we have the runners-up for the season, Sydney Swans. Out goes Luke Parker and Sam Reid. Nobody has come in. They've got draft picks, 2 draft picks in the first round in 19 and 22, as well as 44, 59, 85 and 91. They won't be using all of those picks. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They will be using those first couple, though, for sure. A couple first-round picks. What do they need is an interesting question for the Swans. I think they need key position players. Probably at both ends, in all honesty. I think mainly in their forward line, but key position backman probably wouldn't be the worst thing either if they had one. Someone like a Jonty Fall might go to them as a key forward. He's potentially still going to be on the board for one of their picks. And then the second pick, they could take a small forward. They could take I don't know. They don't really need midfielders at the moment, but whether in a few years they do, say if Chad Warner was to leave, that might change things. Running backman, they're pretty good with. Key defender might not be the worst case if they can find one. Otherwise, a ruckman maybe with their later picks. It's just about rounding out their team, I guess, as best they can. They were the best team for most of the season last year. Just didn't finish it off. So it'll be interesting to see where they take their team with this draft. But I think a key forward is certainly something that should be right at the top of their priority list, in my opinion. Next up, we've got the Weagles. Shouldn't call them the Weagles, sorry. West Coast Eagles. Pick 16. They finished 16th. They lose Barras, Darling and Gaff. In comes Baker, Uys and Graham. So a bit of variety on their in list, a bit of variety on their out list. Tom Barras is obviously a big loss for them. Picks 12, 26, and then 4 late ones in 72, 77, 87, and 92. So they've got pick 12 and then the third pick in the round 2. They'll probably use a couple of those. They'll use their first 2 and then maybe 2 more after that. Where they go, what do they need? They just need anything and everything at the moment. Just the best players on the sheet at the time, I think, is what they need to do. They obviously have a really good developing midfield, especially with Harley Reid coming into their team last year. So getting another midfielder wouldn't be the worst thing. Getting maybe a small forward, medium-sized forward, running backman wouldn't be the worst thing. I know Liam Baker's there, but that wouldn't be the worst. Any key position player that's on possibility. They literally just need to look, and whoever the best player is on the sheet when it gets to their pick is who they need to take. I think with both picks 12 and 26, and then obviously the later picks are just going to be speculative picks and hope, I guess. But I think based on what we've seen from West Coast, best players on offer is what they need to take, because there's no set position that they're really bad at, but there's also none that they're really great at. So I think taking whatever they can get is important. On to the final team. It's the Western Bulldogs. They lose Caleb Daniel, Alex Keefe, Jack McRae, and Bailey Smith. In comes Matt Kennedy. They're going to be pretty busy throughout. They've got 17, 25, 35, 48, 83, and pick 90 as well. Don't think they'll use them all, but there's enough there. So they've got pick 17, which should still be in the range to get a good player. What position do they need the most? I mean, there's always midfielders, always need midfielders. Forward line's not too bad, to be honest. I don't think they need too much down there. Obviously, Darcy as a developing key forward is potentially huge for them going forward. Cody Waitman as a small forward is pretty good. They've got other small forwards in there. Their whole midfield line is really, really strong. So potentially backline, potentially wingman, potentially just adding depth to your team. Because they do have, I mean, their midfield is getting on a little bit. They've got Libba, they've got Bontempelli, and Adam Treloar. So they've got 3 really good midfielders that probably are going to retire in the next 5 or so years. A couple of them maybe a little bit earlier, in Libba and Treloar. So maybe preparing for that is what they use for at least one of those first 2 picks. And then, once again, just another team that potentially just looks for the best on offer on the board at the time, because that might be what works out for them best in the long run. So that is all 18 teams. I'll look at the best picks available, I guess. This has been AFL pre-draft week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you share with your friends if you've got this far. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Episode 76 will be coming out later this week, which will be looking at AFLW prelim week. Big weekend of finals football for the women's game. So come back, check that out. Check out all the socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, this podcast is YouTube and Spotify. Also, we have created a Blue Sky account as well, so go check that out. Thanks for tuning in. This is All Aussie Rules, episode 75. Catch us on the next one.